Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:34 PM and a quorum of members is present, so the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby?
Here.
Mr. Helmer?
Here.
Ms. Konick?
Here.
Mr. Kurth?
Here.
Ms. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Seidel?
Here.
Ms. Spindler?
Here.
I would entertain a motion to recess to closed session.
I move to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, 1 C, E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider the approval of closed minutes of September 11th, the employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff, and a review of possible third-party administrator TPA changes.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Mr. Seidel. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kurth?
Yes.
Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Konick?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes.
Ms. Spindler?
Yes.
We're moving into closed session and return to open session around 7 o'clock. It is now 7:00 p.m. and we are returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For all those who are able, please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public library Friday by providing the agenda to the city library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, and the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. Do we have anybody for privilege of the floor this evening?
No.
Okay. I don't have any announcements, so we'll move right into the administrative team report.
I'd like to just start off by mentioning that at the next board meeting, we are going to be asking the board to approve the official budget for the upcoming school year. Obviously, Patrick will share details next meeting, but did want to let you know that the numbers have come in extremely well. So while, yes, we are getting less tax dollars, we're substantially getting much more state dollars or state aid, which in turn means that our taxpayers will be paying significantly less on the school side of their tax bill for the upcoming tax season. So, but again, we'll solidify that at the next meeting. I did want to mention that we do have an event coming up on Saturday in partnership with the City of New Berlin and the Chamber of Commerce, Discover New Berlin. It's an event that we've been hosting, I think, now for over 10 years. But we are now packaging that with the district's International Heritage Festival, which last year was the first time we attempted that. And we think it's great to kind of couple those two events into one and draw, it's going to be kind of cool and rainy on Saturday. So I'd encourage you to come check things out over at New Berlin West in the field house. And then finally, I just wanted to respond and react to news that came out last week in a Waukesha County School District, specifically Kettle Moraine School District, related to a suit that was filed mainly from parents suing the school district about the use of pronouns and essentially leaving parents out of that process, and that's why the suit was filed in the first place. I do want to clarify that in the School District of New Berlin, we make it very clear to our employees that parents will be involved in any part of the process that relates to a student wishing to do something different at any age and within the process itself. We will also not ask students, or should not be asking students, will not be asking students for their preferred pronouns. That's not our practice. And if those things are actually happening in our classrooms, they shouldn't be, and they should be brought to the administration's attention immediately, because that contradicts what we believe firmly is that parents should be involved at every capacity as far as that type of situation goes. I feel very strongly about it. I know that the school board feels very strongly about that too, and we will continue to uphold that expectation, that administrative rule, and responsibility of how we will address that moving forward, and it will not change. These are the expectations. Any questions, comments, concerns about any of those three items? Thank you.
Well, then we have our student representative update. We welcome back Angelina.
It's good to be back. The school year has kicked off to a great start. Students are happy to be back in the classroom and showing off their potential in school and on the sports field. We are thrilled to announce that 3 West students have been recognized for the National Merit Scholarship Program. Seniors Nora Betry and Sebastian Correa received the prestigious status of semifinalist, and Angel Chow was recognized as a commended student. Sophomores and juniors are beginning their ACT prep. Sophomores took the PACT in September, and there's an optional opportunity for students to take the ACT at a reduced cost on October 31st for all high schoolers. Students in civil engineering and architecture finished their residential design project, where they had to choose an architectural style and build a 12 by 12 model to demonstrate their knowledge on the style and teach other students in the class about it. Also, in Principles of Biomedical Science, students are having a blast playing the role of crime scene investigators and analyzing DNA evidence, from looking under a microscope to measuring blood droplets at a crime scene to determine a person of interest. Last week was one of the biggest and most exciting weeks of the year, homecoming week. The school was filled with blue and gold, decorated by SALU members, and crazy outfits to match the Spirit Day themes. The week started off with trivia night hosted by our journalism program, to a school favorite food truck Tuesday, and then the infamous Powder Puff flag football game taking place last Wednesday, where seniors ended up with the win. The pep rally was held on Friday to get students excited for the football game, where they ended up winning 35-13 against Wauwatosa East. And to end the week, the Under the Sea themed dance took place on Saturday with an exceptional turnout. Senior Jack Wazalowski earned the title of Our School Athlete of the Week award for his dedication on the football field. As a running back, he is an absolute force on the field, with 263 rushing yards, 3 spectacular touchdowns, and accounts for 90% of our total offense production, proving he is a true game changer. New Berlin United Girls Golf finished their season last week, making it all the way to sectionals. For the 7th year in a row, they deemed themselves conference champions, where they executed their game perfectly at regionals to get to play in the top sectional in the state. They also broke and tied 2 school records this year, one being lowest team score competed in a conference tournament, as well as lowest team score competed in a sectionals event. Our girls' tennis team had an outstanding season, where they gave an awesome performance at their Woodland Conference tournament, then moved on to regionals, with our top 2 doubles partners securing a spot to advance. Last week, they competed at sectionals with their number 1 doubles pair, Krista Borkart and Carolyn Gorzek, secured a 2nd place finish qualifying for the state tournament, taking place this Thursday in Madison at the Nielsen Stadium. And finally, El Sol held their annual salsa making contest, having students prepare homemade salsas for judges to try and choose a winner for a $50 gift card. They also sold handmade pulseras and handbags straight from Central America as part of their 2023 to 2024 Pulsera project, where all funds will go directly back to the artisans and handcrafters in Guatemala to help improve living conditions in their area, as one pulsera is $7, which is over 3 times the average amount of money a local Guatemalan makes per day. Thank you.
Special shout out to Angelina, who actually was part of the United Girls Golf team that finished the season in sectionals, conference champs, and all of the other accolades that they acquired throughout the year. Angelina, I know it's your senior year, so this is your last golf season for New Berlin United, but congratulations on that.
All right, thank you. Up next is the consent agenda, which includes the notice and the approval of minutes of the board meeting on September 11th. Are there any items that should be pulled up for separate consideration? Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth, a second by Mr. Seidel to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. On to our regular agenda, and we have a discussion related to the naming rights and facility sponsorships.
One of the board's goals, I'll actually have Dave Cody join us up here just in case we have questions. We really just wanted to have an open dialogue and discussion with the board. The board, in one of its goals, asked a couple questions. One, what are the, how much money have we received from naming rights and the facility sponsorships thus far? And where is the money now? And then how has it been used and possible plans for its future use? The board has 2 documents that have been shared with you. One of them is actually a spreadsheet that shows the dollars, the spreadsheet related to what organizations are sponsored what facility, the amounts that have been sponsored, and then over the course of the next, actually, we do have an agreement that goes out 12 years, but most of them go out to only about 2026. But it kind of shares with you the annualized revenue that we are getting from those agreements that we put in place. The second document that the board had asked for and that you have is these are the remaining naming rights options that we currently have. Again, these two things are, the second document is really always kind of our working document. I know that Dave Cody and Patrick and others have been very willing to work with our partners in whatever capacity needed to kind of essentially get a win-win. So, for example, one of the things that, you may look at is, like the West tennis courts, if it says 25,000, 5 years, somebody wants to give us 30,000, but they want to put 5,000. We can be very flexible, pliable in making agreements with people. And as we make enhancement to some of these venues, some of these dollars may actually end up going up and down. Patrick, can you talk a little bit about, because one of the questions the board had was, of the dollars, so you know how much money we brought in or that we will get in, some of those dollars have actually been spent. So like, for example, over at New Berlin West Baseball, we ended up getting that baseball field donation for naming rights, but part of the strings that were attached to that agreement was they were going to make enhancements to the actual field itself. And so, with that came the naming of Farina Field, and a lot of that was driven by the New Berlin West Booster Club. But Patrick, can you talk about just, because the majority of the dollars have not been spent, some of them have, but other areas, Patrick, where they have been spent minimally?
Sure. So Joe mentioned the sponsorship that did some work at the West baseball field. We also had a direct donation. If you look at Optimum Crush, they donated $20,000 toward a scoreboard, and that scoreboard is what you see at here at New Berlin Eisenhower. So those dollars came in one lump sum, and they were used immediately for the project that they specified in their agreement. That's one of the things that we do allow them to do is they can just give money to the district, or they have the ability to specify what they would like their sponsorship to be used for.
Yeah, so Dave, can you just talk broadly about, so we've got a sponsorship guide. We've got these two spreadsheets that the board's asked for. Anything else that you could add? And then we'll take comments, questions, concerns from the board.
Yeah, first I'd like to thank the sponsors that we do have, because, without them, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. So Drexel Building Supply got things rolling 2 years ago and really kicked things off for us with the $150,000 sponsorship of the West Fieldhouse. OHOW in Aspen is the outdoor, the soccer and baseball complex out at West. Horicon Bank is not the most recent one, but the second most recent one. They're the ticket booth over at West. CNM Fencing has fencing field, or fencing soccer field over here. And I'm missing one. Optimum Crush, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Optimum Crush, yes, obviously with the best named softball field in all of Wisconsin, Optimum Crush Field. So we're really proud of the ones that we've already secured. It's close to $300,000 or more in financial commitments over the next 10 years, 10 to 12 years. I know we have to stretch things out a little bit with Drexel because of the signage that they are also paying for. That is one thing that we do require, is that the company pays for the signage so that we don't lose money right up front from what they're already giving us. But again, we are flexible. The sponsorship guide is just that. It is just a guide. It's just kind of something that we use to start conversations with people that are interested in doing some kind of supporting our district in some way. So the guide is very flexible, very pliable, like Joe said. It's just something, again, to start conversations. It is now something that's kind of ingrained in us. So when we do start meeting new industries or businesses that move into the district, that's one of the things that we talk about right up front, is that we have this opportunity. I think right now it's a little bit of a nebulous thing where because the money isn't necessarily going to anything specific, I don't know if the interest is as high as it could be. I think if there was something that the money was going toward somewhere down the line, I think we may be able to generate more interest given the success that we already have had, plus the opportunity to putting money towards a capital campaign or something like that, I think we might be able to see some bigger gains moving forward when or if that time comes. Any questions for me?
Other things that I'd like to add, just some of the partners that we've met with include, Fleet Farm, when they've got this store just opened in Muskego. Dave's kind of keeps an eye on in the papers. Poblaki Paving moved their headquarters into New Berlin. Julie Cordero, our foundation director, she's heavily involved with the chamber. So whenever there's a chamber, a ribbon cutting, or anything like that, she helps us kind of get things into play. The other piece that I wanted to mention that's a pretty significant piece here, we've generated or will have generated about 80 some odd $1,000 for a project that we have over at the Orchard Lane Commons, which has been a huge lift by the what do they call it there, home and school? The Parent Faculty Council, because they're all called something different, right? And so it's been great because it's not just coming from companies or corporations, it's also coming from within our own groups. So like that West Booster Club with that baseball field, this PFC over at Orchard Lane with the Commons there. And I think, I did mention to the board that right now we're kind of at a crossroads of we've got some pretty significant needs throughout the district for outdoor facilities that are already in our long-range facilities plan. So a couple times people have asked, where are we at with the tracks? Both tracks are in that plan. And as the board knows, a plan is a plan is a plan is a plan. Things can move up, things can move back. And some of it is supply chain, some of it is timing. And so it's just one of these things where you look around and you see what other districts have done. You think of what happened recently in South Milwaukee. They did the district provided dollars, a huge sponsor provided dollars, and then a lot of little dollars helped sponsor an outdoor stadium over at like South Milwaukee. Oak Creek is doing something similar. It's not unheard of. But it's just something that, I want to circle back with Mitch at some point here as the facilities committee chair, and then obviously with the full board. So we're just kind of dropping that notion out there. But first things first, wanted to provide this to you as part of your goals for the year.
Quick question. It says Eisenhower Stadium and Eisenhower Outdoor Complex. Is that something we're looking at in the future, or is that?
Those are items that are available for sponsorships. Is that what you're?
Yeah, so I guess which one of these is the football field? What is the outdoor complex? And then
Well, that would be the entire outdoor, like that whole stretch that you see north of the
so all the soccer fields,
soccer,
all the,
softball, all that is considered the outdoor.
Yeah, so like, for example, Mitch, if you over at West, we've got the Dillett soccer field, the Farina baseball field, but the complex is actually, is it OHAU, Dave? Yeah.
OHAU and Aspen, yes.
It's the OHAU and Aspen complex,
So,
so,
for example, if Company A wanted to put a sign out on Sunny Slope and call it the Company A Eisenhower Outdoor Athletic Complex, we would make that happen.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of answered. What are we doing to market to existing businesses as well?
Yeah, well, we share the information quite a bit. Like we use some of our internal or our external publications, Neighbors Magazine, The Edge, social media. But none of us are salesmen, so it's not a natural thing for any of us we're not cold calling anybody and trying to have conversations like that.
No, I understand. One thing that the city of New Berlin does, and that if we could somehow get into that, is the business of the month. Sometimes they're larger businesses, sometimes they're smaller
Yeah.
businesses, but if we can somehow incorporate.
Yeah.
and actually those are the events that Julie Cordero does attend.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Yep.
A lot of those chamber events, the foundation
Well,
is a part of.
this
and-
is through the city of New
Yeah,
Berlin as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
great idea, great
Yeah,
idea.
because the mayor is there for these, and that's, actually Julie is at those specific events, not just the ribbon cutting ones.
Okay, all right.
Perfect, yep.
Yep, thank you.
If we do another playground or something like that, I don't know if you've been to Malone, but when they did that, they've got those like slats that everyone donated $50 or $75 for, or if we put in a new fence around the soccer field, like, if we have stuff like that, can we do bricks, like a brick walkway leading up, or, I think a lot of families are into spending $2,500. I think it's tough to get
Yeah.
$100,000 sponsorship, but the small ones that don't add a cost can really add up for us too, especially if it's something we need as part of that facility.
And I think that's going to be our next step, Mitch, of what we're going to explore with the foundation and our booster clubs and our home, or our parent groups with our staff. And just kind of feeling a vibe of like, you know, what could garner some attention. So, for example, the boys and girls soccer teams won the state soccer title like back-to-back here at Ike like a year ago. And those families felt compelled to raise like a bunch of money for a scholarship fund. That's what they felt compelled to do, right? And like Mitch, what you're suggesting is, could it be something else? And that's where we, I think, need to be a bit more proactive with these groups, to hear them out, to ask like, well, like what's on your mind? That could be things like that. The other thing that I will say is we are currently, I don't want to get too much into things, but we are working other options with other partners as we speak. But, we're not too far along where we feel it's appropriate to kind of get too far ahead of ourselves with those types of things. But I think that's a great point, Mitch, and I think that we certainly have the opportunity to explore those types of things with our groups. We're already meeting with those groups a couple times a year. And it may be an additional time to focus on this specifically, maybe something that we're looking to do kind of coming up throughout the school year. Ron?
Just, can I piggyback on that real
Yeah.
quick, Ron, before we get, a lot of times when you are doing a bigger project, you usually need to have something, a large donation up front to kind of get things rolling. If you think about the thermometer, when everyone has like a fundraiser, they do the thermometer, and you never want to bring out the thermometer when it's down here, because no one really is going to give to get that up to that 100%. You kind of want to bring out the thermometer when you have a good 75% of it already filled in, so that people are like, oh, I want to buy a brick, or I want to buy a fence post to climb that up a little bit more. So it's definitely, when you do those kinds of things, that is part of the process for sure, but you really have to get some of these bigger things.
And that's what I was thinking with like a playground. If we're gonna give as a district, we know we need new playground equipment, or the Holman School Foundation is gonna put 50 grand in and we need another 25 to make it better, add a couple more things, then that is
Yeah,
an
and-
extra kickoff to get that to the next
For
level.
sure, 100%.
And I think, Amy knows this quite well, actually, because she was part of it was Home and School at Elmwood, right, Amy? We actually partnered with the Home and School at Elmwood to actually build the actual playground that we have there. Not only with the fundraised dollars, but then kicked in dollars from the school district. But again, I think that's the point, I think our next step of what's on people's minds. What are you itching for? Like, what would you want? And I think having those conversations is something we're going to need to do. Were you going to say something, Renee? Oh, sorry, or Ron?
I think what Mitch is talking about is similar to the back wall right by the bleachers at New Berlin West baseball field.
Yes.
There's bricks, and I believe they were probably sold.
They were, yep.
And I know there's some blank too.
Yeah.
So those are simple things that we could garner to try to raise funds
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah, as an example, South Milwaukee, part of their fundraising, Joe mentioned the district is giving some money towards that project. The project is turfing their football field, their baseball field, and their softball field. One of the things, they have a committee that is running part of the fundraising efforts, and one of the things is the $1,000 club. So and each of those members who give $1,000 or more gets a plaque on the wall at the stadium, and then also gets lifetime membership to all, or lifetime attendance to all sporting events at that facility or any other facility. So those types of things, that's a little bit more expensive than a brick, but obviously those are the types of things that you would do to finish off a project or to make it make it happen.
And actually, the very thing that you gentlemen are talking about is going to be part of the grand opening at Orchard Lane. They have a donor wall where there were different levels where you could buy different size stars. And so when we have the projects that are, I guess, I'll say suitable, that is a process that we have already used.
So the last question that the board had asked was, what do we plan on doing with the funds? And I just want to clarify that if you look at that spreadsheet, we don't really have a lot of funds up front. Like it's over time that we're going to end up with these dollars. So it's, you know, we're not talking about that full $300,000 or $350,000 all at once. And then also, it's not that $350,000 is also going to be available to us because they're going to certain projects. What we are looking to do is, again, as I just iterated, is that we kind of want to get a feel from our booster clubs. We want to get a feel from our home and school groups. And then we also want to look at our own long-range facility plan to be able to say, you know, what is going to be our priority? So, you know, right now, for example, let's say, you know, we've got the Eisenhower track is on our long-range facility plan. Or let's actually go with the west track. Well, we also don't have indoor plumbed restrooms over at West. Is that something that could go with that project somehow or something else? And so right now, you know, again, not only do we not have the liquid funds available to us, but I think this is kind of what we're thinking is some of a broader approach to a bigger project that we may want to supplement with these dollars that we've garnered to this point. But I think, Renee, you had initially mentioned this like a year ago. You had said, you know, we should be letting people know where the funds are going to. Great point. And that's what I think we need to start doing is latching on to some of those bigger projects so that people know, like, oh, I can give to, I may not be able to sponsor, but I'm giving to that cause A, B, C, or D. But I think right now that's where we kind of need to network with our partners. And, you know, when I say those groups, we're also looking at business partners too, to come in and listen because, you know, again, you know, if any of you have friends, neighbors, own businesses, or know people that have big businesses, please, you know, I'd like to know who they are because I think we would like to start having these conversations and start moving it to action.
This is really for you probably. So basically, the money that comes in for these types of sponsorships are generally going to be staying with athletics and activities and facilities that sort of pertain to what it is the sponsorships are.
Yeah, we're kind of similar in line. Yes, I would agree with that it's similar in line to enhancing the things that we already have, which is similar to the mission of what the Education Foundation also has too. So, you know, for example, like, could we have stayed with the library over at Orchard Lane? Was it functional? Yes. With the money that they raised, they made it a commons, and it is very awesome. And they enhanced it, and that's what they wanted. Was it a need? No, but it's what they wanted. And, you know, if people are going to raise $80,000, like, sure. Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, then we're done with this section. We have an action item that was discussed in closed session that we need a motion for.
I move to approve employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Spindler and a second by Mr. Helmer to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. And we have future meetings and dates. The board meetings are generally held the second and fourth Mondays, beginning at 7:00 p.m. in Conference Room E, which is here at the district office, unless noted otherwise. Our next meeting is October 23rd. Then we have November 13th and November 27th. There's some other important dates. As was already mentioned earlier, October 14th is the International Heritage Festival and Discover New Berlin event at New Berlin West. And November 3rd, there is no school, Staff Professional Learning Day. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer, a second by Mr. Kurth to adjourn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned.